Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is Saturday, the 20th of October 2018. I'm so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting and some yarn and what's been happening in my life. It's been 2 weeks since I last recorded. Last weekend was just crazy busy, which essentially is still crazy busy, but I've managed to make some time for a podcast. And I will tell you more about what's been happening later in the episode. So if you're watching for the very first time, I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much for giving it a try. And if you're coming back, thank you ever so much. You guys know how much I appreciate that. So it's been 2 weeks and I feel like I've forgotten how to podcast, which is kind of crazy. But there we go. I'm so out of it, you guys. It's been a long week. I am incredibly tired. I actually was tired last night at like 8. I was ready to go to bed, which I didn't. It is now Saturday. I'm having my first coffee, but it is also already like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess. What I'm trying to say is if I am more out of it than usual today, please, I apologize. Such is life. That coffee is really good. Maybe I should have had more coffee sooner. Anyways, this is not a podcast about coffee, but about knitting, and I have so much stuff to talk to you guys about this week. I have some finished objects, although I feel like I am missing one and I can't remember what I am missing, so we'll see how that goes. But I do have finished objects. I will then talk about my works in progress. And I do have lots of acquisitions, which yes, I should not have, but oh well. I have some spinning as well, and then I'll just talk about what's been going on in my life. So I think this is going to be a relatively long podcast episode for my standards. Finished objects. First of all, I finished this pair of socks. At least I don't think I had finished them last time I talked to you, but I was close to finishing them. These are some socks out of hedgehog fibers, twist sock, which is their BFL and nylon blend, in the Carnival colorway, which is a past club colorway. The sock blockers are too small, which is why they're looking a little bit lumpy, but they're fine. I knit these on 64 stitches, US size 1, 2.25 millimeter needles. As you can see, I did relatively long cuffs. And they are just plain vanilla socks, which you know I love. So they're just plain vanilla stockinette socks, and I'm really happy to have them finished. Sorry, I'm having issues with my focus today. I'm not sure what happened. Most likely what happened is Samsung did a software update and now everything has changed. Anyways, these are done. I'm very happy to have these done, and they will most likely be for me. And then, of course, the elephant in the room is what I am wearing. And you guys, I managed to finish my Damiaka Lopa sweater, which is also called the Flea cardigan, and it is by Pineguri, who is a Norwegian designer. So this was still, I think I was working on the first sleeve when I showed this to you 2 weeks ago, and I worked on this thing like a maniac because I just wanted to get it done, and I'm so excited about it. So I will stand up in a second, but first of all, it is a top-down color work sweater in fingering weight yarn. It is knit in the round like a sweater, and then you steek it. And if you don't know what steeking is, it is essentially cutting the sweater upwards after you've finished it to turn it into a cardigan. Words, you guys, words. So I finished everything first. I finished the sleeves first. I had already knit the button bands, and then I did a crochet reinforcement. So there are different methods on how to secure those stitches before you cut. I chose to do the crochet method, and I did it in the yellow yarn because I thought that was fun. And I did take some video of me preparing and actually steeking, so I will insert that right here. Picking up the crochet reinforcement for my steek. So I'm almost done with my second Steek. First one I did from the top down, the second one I'm doing from the bottom up, because that is the way you're supposed to do it. I'm just crocheting and then I will be cutting in the middle. See? There we go. So the Steek is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a bit of yarn and just tack down the Steek. I don't think you have to do that, but it just gives me peace of mind and it lies a little bit nicer, and then this thing will be blocked. So now this sweater is all done. It is washed and blocked. The steeking worked really well. I was quite nervous about it because I always am, but it actually went pretty smoothly. In case you're wondering, I did 2 extra stitches on the when knitting the Steek panel, just because I am terrified. And I thought, well, a little bit of a wider steeking panel will just make it a little bit more secure. So like I said, I did the crochet reinforcement, then I cut, and then what it is, I always stitch down inside just so the Steek lays nice and flat. And yeah, it worked out really, really well. The only thing that is missing is the buttons. And now I just dropped everything. I have ordered some buttons now. These are just some coconut shell buttons that I got off Amazon, because I always think these are really pretty and you can kind of use them both ways. They have designs on one side, but you can also just use them like this. So now I just need to pick the right ones and attach them, and then this thing will be completely done. And it fits really, really well. This is my second damier calopa, and this time I knit one size bigger. And I am very, very happy with it. I did my own length just the way I wanted it, but I think I actually stayed relatively close to pattern. And as you can see, it fits really nicely. I really, really, really like it, and I'm so excited about this. This may be one of my proudest makes, just because I only really started knitting colorwork this year, and now I've done something like 10 colorwork sweaters, which is insane. And this, I guess, is the most sort of advanced, and I don't even know if traditional is the right word, but this had a lot of like traditional colorwork techniques, and it has, I don't know if you want to count the fleece as all over colorwork, but there's a lot of colorwork in the sweater, and I feel like now I am a proper colorwork knitter, which makes me really, really happy. And if you do want to knit a colorwork sweater and you're not super afraid of trying some new things, I think this is a great pattern, because you do learn a whole lot. And yeah, I really, really, really love it. Also because you have colorwork basically throughout the whole sweater, and obviously throughout the fleece here as well. Even though it is a fingering weight garment, it is almost like a double layer, so it is super comfortable and squishy and warm, and I really, really, really like it. So very happy with this garment. I used some Drops Flora yarn, which is quite affordable if you're wanting to get into sweaters. It is a non-superwash wool and alpaca blend, but it doesn't have too much alpaca. So I was a little bit worried about knitting colorwork and steeking with this yarn, but it turned out absolutely fine. And it has a tiny bit of a halo. I'm not sure if you can even tell, but if that doesn't bother you, I think this would be a really good yarn for you as well. And no, I'm not sponsored. I just use Drops Floor a lot because I like it. So yes, Damia Kalopa is done. I'm very excited. I should do the buttons soon. I hate sewing on buttons with a vengeance. My friend Marion will know because I have made her attach buttons for me in the past, but I will try to do them myself this time. And I'm extra excited because we are going to Norway in a week, which is exciting. And now I know which sweater I will definitely be taking, and this was my goal to have this finished by the time we go to Norway. So yeah, very happy about that. I am doing the thing where I am out of breath just from talking to you guys. I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, I still feel like I'm missing a finished object, but I can't think of anything that I've finished that isn't here. So maybe I'm just imagining things. But nonetheless, let's just move on to some works in progress. So in here I am still just on the first sock of my hand spun socks. And when I say just, I mean I literally just need to Kitchener the damn toe. And this sock has been at this point for like 10 days. Just Kitchener it already, Julia. This sock is out of some hand spun that I spun myself. It is a 3-ply / chain ply merino nylon sock yarn, and I forgot that my focus isn't working, but there you go. It's really fun. I really like the short color repeats. I think the blue stitch marker, which is hiding very well with these colors, maybe where I was last week. So I have almost finished the first sock, and I just need to pull those out again and work on the second one. I don't know why I lost steam on those, but I should really get back to them. I am once again using 64 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle. I haven't really been into socks lately, in case you haven't noticed. I've been all about the sweaters, and socks are taking me a lot longer than they usually do, which is weird, but so it goes. Also, I do this all the time, and then I stab myself because I don't store my needles properly, and yes, I know they are needle cozies. You just need to use them, which I don't. But I should. Next up in here are Kai's socks, which I think last time I showed these to you, I was just finished with the first cuff, so I hadn't done very much. And you guys, one sock is done, so at least I've made some progress. Like I said, these are socks for Kai, and I decided to go up a needle size to 2.5 millimeter needles, which is US size 1.5. And then go down the stitch count to 64 stitches to achieve a Kai size sock. So the first one is done, and I took these with me when we traveled both last weekend and when I traveled during the week, and I have just finished the heel on the second sock, so these ones are much closer to being finished, which is exciting. I really love this yarn. It is pulling like crazy, which I know Kai loves, and I also think it's very fun. I don't know why it is flashing sort of irregularly, probably because my tension is just changing a tiny bit while knitting with it. I also really love the colors. They are very sort of autumnal, almost Halloweeny. And yeah, I really like them. I especially like, it looks like, on the first glance, it looks like it's an orange and gray. But then it has these sort of like brown patches in there as well, which I think are really pretty. The yarn that I am using, where is the tag? Oh yeah, I remember. There it is. This is a German sock yarn by Tausendschön. This was one of the very first indie dyed yarns I knit with when I first got back into knitting. It's their 75/25 merino nylon sock, which is very affordable, but yet I think this yarn holds up really well. I have some socks of this yarn that I knit like 4 years ago, and they still wear a lot better than some of my other socks. and the colorway is Widder. So that's my sock knitting. Nothing huge to write home about, but I've been all about the sweaters. So, talking about sweaters, let's talk about my Shelly Sweater first. By the way, all the projects that I talk about, if you ever have any questions about who is the designer, what yarn am I using, what are the colorway names, and so on, check my project pages on Ravelry. You can find me on Ravelry as Wipfi, which is WUEPFI, which you can also find in my group and in the intro of my podcast if you don't know how to spell it. And you will always find all the information and everything there. So I am very, very proud to tell you guys that I've made major progress on this sweater as well. So last time, and I feel like forever and ever and ever, I was working on the body of the sweater, and you guys, the body is done. Crinkled because it's been in a small bag, but nevertheless done. And the first sleeve is done as well. So this is almost finished, I would say. So this is the Shelly Sweater by a designer whose name I can never pronounce. I'm very, very sorry. I am knitting this out of Wollmeise yarn, Wollmeise Pure, which is their 100% wool blend, or wool yarn. It's not a blend, is it? And this is the tape, the tag with the colorway, which is Fliederbush. I got this in their summer sale in the beginning of summer this year. And this is a test of, can I knit a full-on sweater out of 2 skeins of Wollmeise? And the answer seems to be yes, which is exciting. So this is a Shelly Sweater. You can see it has a lace at the top, and then it's just a lot of stockinette. So for the body, I alternated skeins using the helix knitting method, and then I split I had one sort of larger and one smaller cake left over, so I split the large cake into 2, and I didn't alternate colors for the sleeves, and it turned out really well. You can't really tell any difference, so I'm very, very happy about that. I did my own sleeve decreases because that's what I always do. And this is how much yarn I had left over after finishing the first sleeve, which is not quite full length. It's more like 3/4 length, which I really, really like because I like wearing big watches, and then having super long sleeves kind of irritates me. And so yesterday I forced myself to cast on the second sleeve with this, but if I had run out, I still have quite a bit of the second skein left over. So yes, I can definitely knit a sweater out of 2 skeins of what's the name? Wollmeise, that's it. But I will have to say that both of my skeins were overweight as well, which was lucky for me. So very, very happy about that. This sweater took some love. I don't know what it was about it. I think it's just a lot of stockinette on a relatively tight gauge. But I do think I'm going to wear this so much. I think this is going to be a great sort of staple sweater. It's almost like a top because it isn't super heavy. So I feel like I can wear this a lot, and it's a little less rustic, sort of like Nordic looking than a lot of my sweaters that I've been knitting this year. So this one I think would even be maybe it would work for like going to the office, and yeah, I'm very happy about that. Every time I tried it on, I basically didn't want to take it off anymore. So yeah, that is that. Knitting it on 3.5mm needles and 3mm needles for the body, which is hilarious. A little side note here. I cast on another sweater, which I'll show you in a second, and I was using 3mm needles, and I didn't have the right length cable because I use fixed circulars, because I just do. And so I ordered some new 3mm needles, and then when knitting the sleeves and when I got to the point of knitting the ribbing, I went down a needle size and I was like, hang on, there are 3mm needles right here in the exact length that I needed them. So Dumbo here has just ordered the same needles twice because I don't organize my needles. Go figure. But not a big deal. I'm not gonna send them back because I knit a lot of colorwork sweaters and 3mm needles are great for colorwork sweaters. For me anyways. So I feel like I am rambling away this week. I'm sorry about that. The second sweater, which I very excitingly have to show you guys, I am ridiculously excited about this, is another colorwork sweater because, you know, Julia can't stay away from colorwork knitting. And before I show you the sweater, I want to talk about the yarn. This yarn I got a couple of weeks ago from Denmark. It doesn't have any tags, so if I remember, I will write the name either on the screen or maybe in the show notes underneath the video. But I got this yarn based on a recommendation of Ellie of Skandir. Like I said, it's from Denmark. The company is called Garnutsalg. Probably pronouncing it wrong, but that's how I would pronounce it, being a German who doesn't speak Danish. It is relatively similar to Holzgarn, or at least that's what I was told. It is very similar in terms that it is 100% wool. It has about the same yardage of Holz Super Soft, but I actually like it a little bit better. It feels nicer even before blocking it. And I did a swatch and I blocked it, and you guys, I love this fabric. It is very like woolly and it is airy, but at the same time, like the stitches, they're just really pretty. It's definitely if you like sort of like Norwegian yarns, Norwegian isn't the right word, but like those typical woolly yarns that are woolen spun, they're very light and airy. This is just exactly that, and I just love it. You can see a bit of a halo. I'm just trying to show you what I'm talking about. I really, really love it, and I wasn't so sure about this yarn before I blocked it, because in the skein it's nice, but I didn't really know what to think about it. And blocking has just made a huge difference, which is fantastic. And you guys, look, I even swatched in the round, which I never do. So I'm very proud of myself for that. But what are you knitting with it? I am knitting the Emma yoke by Astrid of Knitting for Passion? Passion Knits? Knit for Passion, I think. Once again, you will find it in my project pages. Sorry, Astrid. She just came out with this new design. I first got to know her because I was knitting her Beanie Christine. And when she published this sweater, I got it immediately because it is a beautiful top-down yoke colorwork sweater. And I've been kind of obsessed with it because, look, I'm almost finished with the yoke because that's what I did. Instead of finishing my Shelly Sweater, I cast on a new sweater. This is kind of hard to show because I haven't separated for the sleeves yet, and the needle is a tiny bit too short, but you get the idea. It is a top-down colorwork sweater using fingering weight yarn. And like I said, I'm using 4 colors of this Danish yarn called Garnutsalg. Black Hill is the name of the wool. Don't ask me any more about it. The entire website is in Danish. I ordered using Google Translate. It wasn't super easy. Anyways, I'm using 4 colors, and yes, I know that one color stands out and the other ones don't really have enough contrast, but I decided to just go for it, have some fun, try out the yarn, and I'm really, really happy with it. So let's see if I can get this to focus. So this is where we are, and once again, I'm so curious to block this because I think, once again, just like with the swatch, this will change drastically with blocking, and I cannot wait. The pattern itself is written very clearly, which I really like. It's also one of the first patterns that I've knit with a colorwork yoke, where the yoke depth varies depending on the size that you're knitting, which I think that is really smart. And for someone who always has a wrong row gauge, my yokes always tend to be too long, so I really appreciate that. So I've just been following down the chart, which is really, really fun to knit. There are barely any floats that you need to catch. So it's very sort of potato chippy colorwork knitting. I also love the wrong side, in case you haven't noticed. It feels like a lot of stitches. It feels like this is a very huge yoke, and I was thinking maybe my gauge is off, but my gauge is actually right on point, which it never is. So I'm just following the pattern and trusting, and I think it will be a great sweater. So right now it is very colorful, but after the yoke it is basically just going to be the gray yarn, so the gray is going to be the base for the majority of the sweater, and it's super colorful at the top, which I really, really like. And this yarn, if you don't like yarn that smells of sheep, let me warn you, this is the sheepiest yarn I've ever used. I totally don't mind it. Kai thinks it smells terrible. But yeah, it is proper wool. It comes from a sheep, and you can smell that and you can feel it. It's a little bit sticky from the spinning oil, but not as sticky as Holzgarn tends to be. I personally think it is relatively soft, and especially after washing. But once again, it is relatively soft for being what it is, which is a rustic non-superwash yarn. So much softer than like a Let Lopi, and maybe similar to Drops Flora, but not a superwash merino. So that is that sweater. I'm knitting it on 3mm needles, which is the needles that I was referring to earlier. Can't wait to separate for the sleeves, and I think once I've done that, I will just zip down the body. Thinking about taking this as a travel project with me to Norway, but then at the same time, I don't want to take a sweater because I need to maximize suitcase space. But maybe I'll take it because it is relatively light. I'm not using that much yarn. I'm hoping that I'll have enough yarn, but I think I should be okay. And once I finish the yoke, this should be super easy potato chip knitting when we are traveling. Yeah, I haven't decided yet. My original plan was to finish all the sweaters before we go away, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen, especially because I have a sweaters quantity right next to me that wants to be cast on today. But before we get into yarn acquisitions, I want to show you a quick spinning project. So this is something I spun up over the last couple of weeks. I used some Rolex that I got from a German maker, and I honestly don't remember where I got them from. I got them when Davanda was closing down and everyone was moving on to Etsy. I'm very, very sorry if you are the maker and you're watching this. Please do let me know. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But I got 100 grams of merino Rolex, and they were sort of like color block Rolex. So what I did is I spun them into very thick singles and chain plied them. So this is essentially like a self-striping yarn, except you can't see that in the skein form, of course. And this will make a really fun sort of self-strapping hat or self-strapping cowl. So all the colors stay together and they're just going to make stripes. And because I'm lazy, I went for a really thick sort of yarn. I think this is almost bulky weight. This is 100 meters in almost 100 grams. And I spun the singles with not that much twist, so it just turned into very, very, very squishy yarn, and I really, really like it. It's quite thick and thin, which is what I was going for this time. Very unusual for me, because I usually spin more like sock yarn, but I really, really like it. So this is done. I spun this on my Bliss wheel, which is by the Wool Makers, and I have the single treadle, which I love to death. And with that, let us move on to some acquisitions. And I know I shouldn't be having any, but I've kind of fallen off the yarn diet bandwagon a week before going to Oslo, which isn't great. But such is life. So I have quite a bit of yarn. First of all, I got these buttons for my sweater. Like I said, these are just coconut shell buttons that I got off Amazon. I got like 100 button pack for something like $10 because I think I will be able to use these buttons for a ton of different things. They have different sort of patterns, and then you can use them either this way or you can have the natural side showing. And I've seen lots of people use those on baby garments just to make them like just even as accents, and I think they're really cute. So I got these. And then I have 2 big chunks of yarn here. First of all, the first thing I'm going to show you, it was really funny. I purposely don't go into yarn stores these days because I'm obviously trying not to buy yarn. So this morning we went to the supermarket and there was yarn on sale that I've never seen there before. Because we do have yarn in German supermarkets, usually it is like 3 colors of Regia and some acrylic. But they had this stuff. This is some Bio Natura wool. It has lots of like organic textile standard certifications on it, which I think is great. And this is made in Italy. It's 100% wool yarn. And it's 100 meters per 50 grams, so it's a DK to worsted weight yarn. Hang on, no, it's DK to Aran? You get the idea. And usually I wouldn't have jumped on this, except yesterday I was watching Kristen of Wool and Wine, and she is knitting a throwback cardigan in sort of like very neutral colors, and I really thought to myself, well, that would be a great sweater to knit in those colors if I had that yarn. But I'm not going to go out and find that yarn. And then essentially it just found me, and I decided, well, if it found me, I have to take it home. So I got 5 colors because I didn't have my phone with me at the time. I only had a rough idea of what I need for the throwback sweater, and I didn't have any possibility to check Ravelry. So I got 5 colors. This is going to be my main color. I got like 7 skeins of this, and then 1 ball each of these colors, which I think I'm only going to use 3 of them, so I'm not sure. I think most likely I'm going to use these 3 in combination with this, and it is exactly what I was looking for. And obviously, being from a supermarket, this wasn't very expensive considering it is a sweater's quantity, so I am very, very happy about it, while also feeling a tiny bit bad because yarn diet. But I'm essentially thinking my throwback found me in the supermarket, and what are you going to do? So very excited about this purchase. It was really funny. We went for like a big Saturday shopping trip this morning with Kai, and Kai walked off to find some cheese to come back with the entire shopping cart loaded full of yarn, and he just kind of shook his head. Oh well, there you go. So that is my first acquisition. I'm not even sure if this has colorway numbers. Oh, it does. I've got color 341, 700, 800, 342, and 340. So these are the colors, and this is the label. I have no idea where you can get it besides Edeka, which is where I found it in Germany. And once again, I'm not sponsored, I just know that people will ask. The second thing I got, I just threw on the ground. Excuse me. So this I actually ordered a while ago, and this was supposed to be my only yarn diet fail in those 2 months that I didn't buy any yarn, supposedly. Says the knitter who bought yarn today. Where do I start? You may remember I knit myself a sweater out of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight yarn, and I totally fell in love with the yarn. I think it is the best colorwork yarn I've ever knit with, and I loved it. So the other day, maybe like 3 weeks ago, I threw my yarn diet overboard because I saw that you can order that yarn from Jamieson and Smith in the UK and it is relatively affordable. So what I decided to do is go big or go home, and you could get 500-gram cones. You can see where this is going. So I got a 500-gram cone of this. It's showing up too bright. It is a sort of like burgundy color. It's definitely very red, but it's not super bright red. It's sort of like more a dark red. Yeah, you kind of get the idea. So I got a 500-gram cone of this, and I got a 500-gram cone of this, because all colorwork sweaters can be based on these two colors. And I thought, well, because with my I'm just playing with these huge cones of yarn while talking to you guys. I didn't use very much yarn for my first sweater at all because it is such a lofty, light, woolly yarn. It's a woolen spun yarn. It's supposed to be fingering weight, but for me it knit up almost like a DK weight just because of the way that it blooms and feels. So this in itself is 4 sweaters for me. So what I decided to do is I decided to get some small skeins, this is how they usually sell their yarn. This is Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. It is 100% real Shetland wool, it says on the back, and 25 grams are 115 meters, made in the UK. So I decided to get a couple of white skeins because color work, perfect. So I got 3 25-gram balls of the white, and then I got 2 of these because I think this would be a fantastic sweater combination, possibly even this. But again, you could also do this. And yeah, I am definitely into like the yellow and gray and black. And I also got 2 different like red to pink shades because maybe, but more importantly, isn't this beautiful? This combination in itself just makes me want to knit it immediately. So you can see I'm all about the colors at the moment. I just love colorwork knitting. I just love this yarn, and I have no regret about this because I can knit at least 4 sweaters out of all this yarn, which means I definitely don't really even need to go to Norway to buy yarn, which is why I'm going. But yeah, very, very happy about this. Again, very sheepy, woolly yarn, which is all I seem to be craving at the moment. And I'm very, very happy about it. So that is it in terms of acquisitions. You guys said you missed acquisitions, so poor me, I had to go out and buy some yarn to make you guys happy, right? Okay, I think the coffee is definitely starting to work because I'm starting to feel a little insane. So you guys, that is it in terms of knitting content. So if you're only here to watch the knitting and the yarn, thank you so much for watching. I would do the same. I wouldn't watch the crazy blather, but I will continue talking about that. So if you're only here for the yarny bits, thank you so much, and I will see you next week. And if you do want to stick around, I will just go on to ramble about what's been happening. So what's been happening? It's been 2 weeks. Last weekend I drove, or we, that is Kai and I, we drove up to where my parents live, where I grew up. We drove up on Friday night because our car needed its winter tires. But the main reason why we drove up is because my aunt was celebrating her birthday, her 60th, with a whole bunch of people. It was a quite big celebration. So that was really, really fun. It was really fun. It's been ages since we had like a big celebration with everyone in the family, from like us young ones to I think the oldest person there was 89. And it was just a really, really, really fun night. It was fun to see a lot of people that I hadn't seen in years or even a decade with some of them. So we had a really fun time. And how many times can I say fun in one sentence? But then we drove home back on Sunday, which was a bit of a long drive. And I was just so tired. We had a great time. It was just so refreshing and nice to get out of Munich and do something different. But I was really, really tired, which is why I didn't podcast. And then this week I knew was going to be very insane. Mostly because I had a 3-day business trip. I also had to do all the driving, and those were long days, and I'm still recovering. It's just been intense at work, which is okay, and it should get better at some point, especially because I only have one more week to work without any business trips, and then I'll be on holiday for a week, so I'm so ready for that. I cannot wait. So that's why I've been a little bit AWOL. I've just been trying to get through the days and trying to get some sleep rather than stay up too late and knit. And I have been kind of quiet on social media, but that is just how it goes sometimes. So yesterday, which was Friday, Kai forced me to stop working by just reserving a table at one of our favorite restaurants. Which was great. So we went out for dinner, and afterwards I was so zonked out. I actually did yoga for the first time in ages, which felt really, really good. So I'm trying to get back into yoga. I've also been trying out Headspace, which, if you don't know, is a sort of like meditation training app, just to kind of try to help with self-care and just releasing stress at the end of the day. And this weekend, I'm just so happy that we don't have many plans. Kai is cooking up a storm, which I love. He's a really, really good cook. So I love when on the weekends he just does the cooking. Sometimes very experimental cooking, but it usually tastes really good. So I'm not complaining. I need to do some household things which always just kind of fall under the table if you're busy, and at some point, sadly, they catch up. But besides that, I want to play with my stash. I need to seriously clean up my stash and my craft room because stuff is everywhere. And then I'm hoping I'll be able to just kind of chill out and do some knitting and just wind down. And at some point, I need to start planning Oslo as well. So nothing super exciting for you guys. Last week was the Yarn Festival here in Vaterstetten, which I didn't get to attend, which wasn't a bad thing. I will go again next year, I'm sure. So that's what's been happening here. I feel like I wanted to tell you something else, but I'm forgetting it now. So whatever it is, I will tell you next week. I am planning to record a podcast next Saturday before we go up to Norway on Sunday. I mentioned in the past, if you're in Oslo, I should say, Norway is a big country. If you're in Oslo and you would like to meet up for a knit night or something, do let me or Marion know. I know one person who said she would be keen, so if anyone else would like to join in, let me know through Instagram, through Ravelry, through the YouTube comments, whatever works for you. And we're just planning to do something very, very informal. Just sit down somewhere, do some knitting and catching up. So if you want to join in, please feel free. And so there should be a podcast next week, possibly a vlog when we go to Norway. Haven't really decided about that, but most likely there will at least be some kind of footage, whether it is a proper vlog or just pieces. And of course, after Norway, there will most likely be a lot of yarn, because I think we are now up to 7 yarn stores that we want to visit. So that's what's going to be happening. But for now, I think that's it. So thank you so much for sitting through this relatively long podcast episode from me. Thank you for waiting last week and understanding that sometimes it is just not possible to podcast, and that is just that. So I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope it is as beautifully autumnal where you are as it is here. It has been absolutely stunning. So enjoy your knitting, and I will see you very soon. Bye!